Industrial light and magic in the creation of Star Wars. These are some of the main people from ILM that made Star Wars possible. George Lucas needed special effects that had never been done before, and studios were not in the market of developing a team like that. He paid for the creation of the team out of pocket with the money from his last film, American Graffiti. John Dykstra was in charge of the team and brought together a lot of people from different backgrounds to complete it. Some were from colleges, and some had stop motion animation backgrounds, and some did not have any film experience at all. They were all inexperienced, but that helped them with their creative process, and they leaned on each other for support. They became very close while creating the effects for Star Wars. They would throw parties in their off time and consider themselves more of a summer camp than a professional movie organization. This led to a very creative team that helped each other with what they needed. They worked hard, and long-hour days were very common for them. At first, they had a lot of free range, but as the deadlines got closer, they had to buckle down and put in long days to complete the project. Theme and the feel of the models is a very important aspect to the film. The rebels are seen as a defiant youth who drive hot rod ships that are falling apart and need spare parts to keep running. The Empire is seen as this factory new model that looks pristine and daunting. The design of the ships were meant to feel realistic and lived in, making you think that they are real. George Lucas draws his inspiration from his youth and his previous film where the good guy has an outgoing hot rod that tries to defeat the factory-looking car fresh off the line. Speed was another key as he wanted his film to be fast instead of the normal, slow, lethargic themes in previous films. George Lucas had a very specific idea in his mind, and living up to this expectation was a very difficult task for the team. They came from all different backgrounds like machinists and mechanics and were thought of as jacks of all trades. Models were made of all sizes, and lots of the design work was to show perspective. When making the trench for the Death Star, tiny windows were added to make it look big, and the Star Destroyer had many features like bays and hatches to show its size. The Sandcrawler was motorized, allowing it to be remote controlled, and to capture destruction on models, explosives and pyrotechnics were used. The team went through many reworks and changes like the design of Han Solo's original ship. Space 1999 featured a ship that looked like their design, and Joe Johnson was tasked with creating a new one using a cockpit and an antenna dish from the old model. Looking at dirty dishes in the sink, it inspired him to go with an unconventional circular shape, giving it its iconic look. There were significant work into the cameras used for the film. They needed to be able to reshoot shots the exact same way and had to be filmed perfectly. The cameras were fitted with motors and given multiple forms of movement. The camera was outfitted with a computer so that it could record the movement and then replicate it. John Dykstra was the creator, so they called it the DystraFlex camera. The reason they used this method was to gain perspective and realism. They were doing things that had never been done before, so creativity was key and everything was done in-house to save money. They would try many different things, as everything they were doing was experimental. One of the shots on the Death Star was recorded in the back of a pickup truck, and they used the truck so that they could get a lot of speed in their shot. They needed to create the exact same perspective because with their editing technique, they had to shoot multiple times. The first pass was the matte pass to get the outline. The second pass was to get the engine and body of the ships, and then they were put together to get the final composition shot. The models could move and the camera would move, allowing them to create many different forms of movement in their shots. When filming the opening scene, the Star Destroyer is actually upside down and the camera skims across it to give it the feeling of it being massive. Another way they used to show perspectives was with paintings. Harrison Ellenshaw painted multiple portraits for the movie. The painting with the Death Star tractor beam is made to make you think that he is on the verge of death if he falls into the pit, and the painting with the Sandcrawler is a great way to have a functional set that is a huge scale to it. They could save money on sets, and this is a way to add more details to intricate scenes. The team really started to feel the pressure of the project when they were deep into production and no film had yet been made. They lost half their budget and only had models and cameras to show for it. They set out to make the first scenes and proof of concept shots. The first two shots were the Death Star turret where it spins and the cannons go back and forth, and the other shot was the iconic escape pod detachment from the ship. Rose Dunnigan was a huge part during this time as she helped the dysfunctional team organize into a well-oiled machine, creating itineraries for them and scheduling their shooting. George Lucas became more involved with them at this point because his shooting was complete and he was very stressed during this time. They continued to edit up until the release of the film. They finished the movie and they were excited to see it as they had just been working on the special effects, so they did not even have a full idea of what the movie would look like. John Dykstra won an Academy Award for his work, and others did too at ILM. They were very proud, and George Lucas was proud too, but he wanted his effects to look better for the future, and it led him to his development of CGI. Without ILM, Star Wars would not have been possible, and they're the reason that science fiction genre is what it is today.